Hi, Strathcona County. I'm your Mayor, Rod Frank, and it's time for another virtual coffee. And I'm delighted to be able to have our next guest on. It's Trina Boymook. Trina, why don't you just tell everybody what your role is in the community? I know you have many roles, but the one I'm thinking of is education.
Yeah, so I'm a trustee here in Sherwood Park and proud to represent Sherwood Park on the Board of Trustees for Elk Island Public Schools, but I also am the chair of Elk Island Public Schools. And so that's, the many hats, or some of the hats I wear in education.
Yeah, so Trina's very energetic community builder in Strathcona County and has been for many years, but for sure education has taken a hit, so to speak, as we all have, but I just can't imagine what you've gone through because it is not even 1 month, Trina, since we've really had to intensely respond to this pandemic. We were all getting ready. We had an emergency response going in January, but I remember distinctly the evening of March 11th when, my goodness, pro basketball leagues closing down. This is taking on a different feel. And I think by that weekend, you were forced to close your schools to students. So just tell us what those early days were like for you as trustee and for your staff, and how did you get it all together?
Well, initially it was that we were going to have to introduce social or guidelines to keep kids in school, and that came out, I believe, on March 15th. We had a telephone conference call with the minister, and she had talked about that. The safe thing is for the kids to be at school, but there are certain guidelines that we'd have to follow, and our senior administration team spent the whole weekend putting together the plan on how to abide by the guidelines. Then we received news at the very end of on Sunday that there would be no classes being held in person, and that would be indefinitely. That certainly changed things dramatically really quick when you've just kind of put together in place the plans to implement guidelines. So again, our team came back together and came up with a plan. But what we needed to do was to make sure that when we went live and introduced an alternative model for providing education, that we were setting people up to be successful in that model. And so we had determined to move ahead immediately with the grade 12 students, as this is their graduating year, and there's a certain expectation of the minister of the degree of the curriculum that needs to be covered still regardless. And at that time, we were not sure whether or not the diploma exams would be continuing, and we have since then received news that they have been canceled, which is good for our grade 12 kids and for our staff that are teaching our grade 12 kids. We allowed the students to, I think, to become comfortable or I don't know about comfortable, but some time, and we waited until we came back after spring break. And so on April 6th, we rolled out the alternative learning model starting on April 6th this week for our K-11s. And so what we're seeing, of course, is students are excited to reconnect with their teachers and as well with some of their classmates through a virtual education model. We're using Google Classroom, and so I think what we needed to do initially was to bring all our staff up to speed on how to use Google Classroom. And for some, this is their very first time. And for others, they have, had experience with it. And so it was quite a spectrum. But things are looking really good. We're hearing some really positive comments from parents around how that is working. We certainly are hearing about parents that are feeling a lot of pressure at this time, and so the expectation is that they become all of a sudden teachers, but play a support role in all of that. And we recognize that what the learning would have looked like in person is going to look different than doing it through this virtual model.
Well, first of all, I applaud the professionalism of Elk Island Public and also yourself as the leader of the school district. And because you're taking it all very in stride in a sense. I know that probably we can't see your little duck feet underneath the water, but you're being very calm and cool about it all. And I know that you just can't simply flip a switch after 100 years of educating people and say, let's do it this new way without there being some problems. So thank you so much on behalf of the community.
So I think we're setting them up to, I think, being realistic expectations of our staff in adapting to this, as well as our students and our families adapting to this, and being very mindful of the pressure that's beyond just the education piece. But really, this is the first time all of us are dealing with a pandemic, and that comes with an emotional toll as well. And I think that we're being very sensitive about it. Once we adapted to the idea that we would be delivering education in a different means to our kids, and we got the second I think challenge to deal with, and that was the reducing our basic grant amount by just under 14%. And so for Elk Island Public Schools, it was about $2.3 million that we won't be receiving from the government for the month of May and June. As well, for student transportation, it's about $1.5 million. So that we really, as a board, have to commend our senior administration team who have been going in and coming up with new plans and leaderships, and so we just we rise to the challenge, and I believe it really speaks to the passion, the professionalism of all our staff, their commitment to student success. The Board of Trustees as well, they have also learned to do business in a different way as well. We've been utilizing Zoom meetings, and for some trustees, it's the first time using this platform. And so they have been adapting very well to that. And so we're carrying on the business of the board. We're still holding our caucus meetings. We've been having last minute meetings to deal with each of these pieces that keep on arising and that needing our attention immediately. And so we are, sometimes it's within hours we're holding a meeting, or it's, the next day, and everybody knows that, we've got a challenge and we've got to move quickly, and to really provide that assurance to our families, our community, our staff, that we're doing the very best and using our resources the best way we can in order to support learning and keep that learning going. And for some kids and for our staff as well, I think it's about ensuring that we're providing some kind of normal in this. And education is a very much that normal part, and there's a lot that's not normal right now for our kids. They have school sports teams they missed out on, or several of those, I think, milestones that you have been anticipating or dreaming of, all those kinds of things, and so that's a lot to take in. So whatever normal we can introduce, that's what our focus is.
Okay, well, so shout out to the trustees and administration, the teachers. I am really curious to pick up on that last part. I can just imagine the continuum of response from parents and, most importantly, students to this, where some are probably, whatever, I'm fine with it, where others, the anxiety is probably through the roof. So any little stories about how you're handling those important groups, the students and the parents?
Yeah, well, still on staff is our guidance counselors, our support staff that are specialists are still on staff. How they're supporting students looks a little different. It will be through a virtual way, but our students and our staff have that opportunity and access to our counselors, other specialists that we've had on staff and that's been supporting kids all along the way. Those are there. And I think that if parents are feeling a little overwhelmed by their new role that they're playing in this learning, that to reach out to the teacher and say what's working, what's not working, and see how that can be adjusted. And we'll work with families for sure to assist them in whatever way we can to smooth some of this thing out and try to. It's not meant to increase the stress and what's on families currently right now, but we're here to help. And if they are feeling that it's a little overwhelming or something is not quite working, then we certainly want them to reach out to their teacher and discuss maybe something else that might work better for your family. I think what's important right now is to support your child emotional needs. I think that's the number one thing first. Read with your child, have them read to you, play fun games, work your math skills into whether it's baking something or cooking something or playing different types of board games. Those things that support and encourage literacy and numeracy are probably the key focus at this point. And and sometimes it's just really the little things that really are going to help things along. I think we do anticipate that when students come back to our classrooms that we are going to have to work with the students to bring them up to where they need to be. We're anticipating that, and so that will be part of that plan of when students return to the classroom.
Okay, well, a lot of comforting words there for students and parents. And I just want to close with, I'm thinking particularly of all students, but those ones in the transition years, grade 6, grade 9, and most importantly, at this time, grade 12. These students, their lives probably feel turned upside down, and they've got to make further plans around education and careers. How is that being handled?
Well, I think that, the schools continue to do the things that they've always done, and they're just doing it in a different kind of way. And so preparing for those transition points will still be addressed by those that is their expertise and background in preparing kids for leaving elementary, grade 6, and moving on to the junior high, our junior high students moving on to senior high. Those things will still take place. How it will look may be different. The students have registered for courses using online, and so that won't be different kind of thing. But the work behind the scenes to prepare for the next school year is all intact, and they're on track to do all the things that they need to do. The Board of Trustees are on track with all its financial work that it needs to do to prepare and determine how do we best use our resources for the next budget year. And so that work is heavily underway right now. And I think that, the board is quite sensitive and really thinking about our grade 12 students, in which this is the year that they would graduate, which has a lot of tradition around how that is celebrated. And so we're going to be, turning our minds towards that. I believe the high schools will turn their minds to that as well. But, at this time, we have no idea when the students will return back to class and when that will be safe to do so. And so, now that we have our plan up and going and things are running, our mind is now, focusing on how do we welcome back the students and what do we need to do in order to do that. So we'll continue to work with the minister to inform her of any challenges that we're facing or any things needs that, or assistance that we're going to need to welcome kids back into the classroom again. But the work is really much still going on, just the way it's doing. may be different. And for, I think, our grade 12 students, I'm sure that for them, that they're very, I think, anxious about, will we come back and before the end of the school year, and what would a grade 12 celebration look like. But the minister has made some really positive moves, I think, for our grade 12 students. There are some courses in which you certainly cannot do virtually, and would be like fabrication, construction, some of those that it's a very hands-on opportunity. And so the schools do have the ability to award up to 15 credits for those students who are on track to graduate.
Great.
And so we're really pleased that there's been a great deal of sensitivity around that graduating grade 12 student, and those of them that may have come up short on the credits due to the fact that the learning has been interrupted and the course that they were registered in cannot be delivered in an alternative method.
Okay, well, thank you to Trina Boymook, the trustee and also the chair of Elk Island Public. Thank you to Elk Island Public Schools for getting our students through this pandemic response, and our hearts go out to all students, particularly grade 12 students, but I'm hearing that things are well in hand and that you are going to go through and get your education completed at the high school level, and you'll be able to go on to great things. So thank you. Trina, any parting words for your stakeholders before we sign off here?
No, we just want to make sure that everybody stays healthy, and if you need extra assistance or I reach out to your schools, and they're there to help. And we're going to get through this together, and we really look forward to the day when it's safe for our kids to be back in our classrooms again.
Absolutely. Okay, well, that's it, Strathcona County. We'll talk soon. In the meantime, look after yourself, look after your neighbor, and stay safe. Thank you.